As they have for almost 600 years, Roman Catholics in Germany carry the body of Christ through the streets of their cities. The Church reveres bread blessed by priests as the real body of Jesus. But in Europe, the power of Christian ritual is waning. Belief in its promise of ultimate redemption is weakening. And the 2,000-year-old church that guards this sacred mystery is threatened with eclipse.
The whole idea of outsourcing your relationship with God to the church, or the institutionalized church, I find that's ridiculous.
Of course, I am sad, and I think it's a disaster for society if the voice of God is not heard.
The ranks of the faithful are thinning. More than 180,000 German Catholics left the church last year. It's estimated that in the last 50 years, the Protestant church has lost half its membership. And the same story is being told across Europe. As Christendom gives way to questioning, doubt and even frank disbelief, what will be the fate of this ancient faith and its once powerful churches? On Sundays, Father Lucas Glocker takes to the road. Once he had one parish in Mannheim, now there are 6. The German church is running short of priests. Keffertal's last priest, forced to adopt one parish after another, left the church in despair. Father Glocker now has 20,000 Catholics in his care and feels isolated from them. He says few young people will commit their lives to such a job.
I had the problems to tell my girlfriend to say, well, I just want to become a priest. 2 years ago she started talking with me again, so that's okay now. See, if you come as a young priest, young man nowadays in a parish, say, well, I think about, maybe I should become a priest. No, you don't. No, don't do this. 20 or 30 years ago, it was, great.
Congregations are dwindling and they're getting older. Father Glocker says the church has been slow to adapt its message to a changing society.
Of course, I am sad. And I think it's a disaster for society if the voice of God is not heard, because we need in our society orientation. Yeah, orientation. Yeah. People run around and they don't know exactly what's right and what's wrong.
At the town fete in Keffertal, local clergy take on the village team. After a dirty game, the clergy are defeated 3-1. Father Glocker believes that only far-reaching change can win back support for Catholicism. Powerful voices in the German church are calling for reforms so radical they would once have seemed unthinkable. Eberhard Schockenhoff was among 144 senior Roman Catholic theologians who wrote an open letter that shook the church. They said the church must ordain women and allow priests to marry if it was not to alienate the society it serves.
The main problem is that the church hasn't found any way or any real answer to the question, how can you live your faith in a modern society which is very rich, which is concentrated on the results of science, which has a high expectation of personal freedom, which has very liberal norms of sexual behavior. And in this environment, we have no answer how to live in a convincing manner as a Catholic woman or man.
Do you think it really might not survive if these changes aren't made?
Yes, that's a real danger. Many people lose the church, go out, doesn't interest them any longer, and this is a real danger. And if the church not see how great this danger is, I have the fear that in 20, 30 years, in Germany, you will not find very much parishes who are centers of vitalized Christianism.
As Pope Benedict discovered when he visited Germany in September, the scandal of sex abuse by priests is also driving Catholics out of the church. While the Pope celebrated Mass before 60,000 people in Berlin, 10,000 others protested outside. The Church has expressed its sorrow and regret about sexual abuse, but the scandal is costing it dearly. Every year, Germans automatically pay about 8% of their income tax to churches. More and more of them are using their right to opt out. The Church says those who don't pay should no longer share in the ritual of Holy Communion, the sign of full membership. It has, in effect, now excommunicated well over 1 million Germans.
Do you not think that seems harsh and unfair and a very hard decision?
At the end, it can be, for the people, it gives the impression of being a hard decision. I would say it's a consequent decision, and I remember and I repeat, after a process of dialogue. You must be in the dialogue with the people, but at the end, when he says, I won't, then it is consequent and not harsh, it is consequence.
As in Germany, in Protestant Scandinavia too, societies once founded in Christianity are forsaking the faith. The church still looms large in Finland. To be Finnish has traditionally meant being Lutheran, but Finns are swapping religion for recreation. The church still confirms more than 8 in 10 teenagers as members. Its winter confirmation camps are a rite of passage in Finland, but few remain members for long. Finns are formally resigning their membership of this small church at the rate of about 1,000 a week.
They feel that the church is intolerant and too conservative, doesn't take seriously the questions people have nowadays. And it is partly true. And I think we have to listen to them.
Finns also pay a church tax up to 2% of their income. But even this huge income can't buy congregations. Beautiful churches and soaring music are not enough. The church's traditional services no longer capture the imagination of a public which increasingly sees the church and its rituals as irrelevant to their lives. To an increasingly liberal society, the church seems preoccupied with morality. Its stern approach to homosexuality in particular has alienated many people. After one television debate last year, 40,000 people resigned their membership of the church in the space of a few days.
Yes, definitely.
Heik Ursula runs a website campaigning against the church tax. He's made opting out a matter of a few keystrokes online.
Our goal is not to hurt the church. We are simply demanding that the state doesn't give privileges to any of these faiths or ideologies. The more the people leave the church, the more successful we are, because we think that when the resignation rate is low enough for the church, then we can have political support to change the existing laws.
A group of people in their early 20s meet in a Helsinki house for pasta and prayer. To them, church services are dull. They've lost trust in institutions and no longer want to be told what or how to believe.
The whole idea of outsourcing your relationship with God to the church, or the institutionalized church, I find that's ridiculous. And just breaking that mentality of coming to the church and just receiving, but more making people a part of it, like sort of including them in the service, making them discuss with each other, making them face each other, not just stare at each other's backs.
At confirmation camp, they sing about the faith of children. But faith in Finland seems a fragile thing. An estimated 40% of Finns have their own concept of God, and often it's a vaguely defined higher power with little resemblance to the God of the Lutheran Church.
In my opinion,
Kimmo Ketula, a Lutheran theologian, has watched as churches across Northern Europe have met the same faltering belief in God and weakening cultural links with Christianity.
church and churches in all over Europe are at the historical crossroads. And the situation is quite unstable in the sense that you can take several different paths which lead to radically different directions. And we see that some churches take one option, other churches may take the other option, but none of them so far have succeeded in turning the tide back.
With German clergy excommunicating those who don't pay church taxes and the Finns finding God increasingly irrelevant to their lives today, what does the future hold in store for Europe's most progressive societies? Holland might have some of the answers as to how the church needs to adapt. Christian leaders here are flowing with the shifting tide, and for some, that means abandoning beliefs once considered essential.
Faced with a Dutch public which is no longer prepared to believe in traditional church teaching about God or an afterlife, progressive clergy are virtually reinventing Christianity. They're focusing on people's questions about life and death rather than preordained answers, and explaining God in terms of powerful human experiences such as love. They say only with a radical new understanding can Christianity compete in this very secular society.
The Reverend Klaas Hendrikse is among the most radical of all. His service at the Exodus Church in Gorinchem contains hymns, readings and the Lord's Prayer. Mr. Hendrikse says Jesus probably never existed. He doesn't believe in God as a supernatural being, but only as part of human experience.
When it happens down to earth, between you and me, between people. That's where God can happen.
What is God?
It's a word for experience, for human experiences.
But it's a central feature of Christianity that Jesus did exist, that he was the Son of God.
Yes.
That's the central tenet of Christianity, surely. And you're saying that's not necessarily true?
That's correct. It's a misunderstanding of what Paul said. Ja. Ja. Dus zo is het begonnen. Dat geloven in
And more
God.
surprisingly, Mr. Hendrikse doesn't belong to an obscure sect on the religious fringe, but to the mainstream Dutch Protestant church. A recent study by the VU University of Amsterdam suggested that 1 in 6 clergy in the Dutch Protestant church were most accurately described as either agnostic or, like Klaas Hendrikse, atheist. That makes you no longer a Christian, surely?
Well, I don't, if you ask me, are you a Christian? I say, well, I am a reverend in a Christian church, so I cannot say I'm not Christian. But the Christian code is for me too narrow. I am Christian because I'm in a Western European tradition and culture.
After Mr. Hendrikse published a book about a non-existent God, an attempt was made to expel him. It failed because his views were already widespread among its members.
He uses the Bible in a metaphorical way, and I think it's very important that we can use it in that way because I can understand it then, and I can live it out in daily life.
Here you can believe what you want to believe for yourself, what you really feel and think that's true.
Such revision is anathema in Holland's Bible Belt. In Staphorst, about a quarter of the population attends church on Sundays. The town even has a law against swearing. Christians belonging to its traditionalist Dutch Reformed Church are ready to reach out to a secular public, but not if that means changing their understanding of the traditional faith.
When we get people into the church by throwing Jesus Christ out of the church, we lose the core of Christianity. Then we are not reforming the institutions, the attitudes, but the core of our message, namely Jesus Christ. And we should never, never end up by losing the core of our message.
But for many liberal Christians, human experiences such as love are the core of Christianity. At an open evening in Amsterdam, a speed date session allows the curious to discuss love with a succession of strangers. Dutch churches are coming to terms with the loss of orthodox belief and its replacement with a far vaguer concept.
In our society we call it somethingism. People believe in something, there must be something between heaven and earth. But to call it God and even think of a personal God is for the majority of the Dutch population is a bridge too far. So, but Christian churches are in a market situation. So they can offer their ideas and views and their practices to a large part of the population which is interested in some kind of spirituality, some kind of religion. But the churches have to offer and can offer more to these people than just vague somethingism.
Stroom West is one church's experiment in the world of somethingism. It was set up with the aim of reaching out to young people in particular, replacing church buildings with the safer space of a darkened theatre. Here they contemplate the concept of eternity by spacing individual grains of rice across the floor. Stroom West's leader believes traditional Christianity has defined God too rigidly. Now people have lost their belief in certainty. He says it's time to take God out of the box.
It has changed to be Christian, I think. It has to be alert on what's going on in society and rethink what Christianity means today again. And so it has to change to stay Christian.
But in a way that means changing to serve the community it's in.
It's serving, but also rethinking what it means. I mean, you can't preach heaven in the same way 2,000 years ago as today. It means something different, and we have to think again what it is. I mean, we can use the same words, but say something totally different.
And you do believe Jesus was the Son of God, who was literally resurrected, and is part of God?
Well, that's a tough question.
So not necessarily.
I'm not sure what it means. People have very strict ideas about what it means. And with some ideas I might agree, with some I don't. for me, is one worth living my life with. And I think I will be fascinated and follow him for the rest of my life.
Even if he isn't the Son of God?
We have to question everything, and even his divinity, and ask what does it mean that he's divine? I mean, that's not a question we asked back there in my youth. But we have to rethink again, what does it mean? And if we can explain this to people who have no idea.
Across Europe, Christianity as part of culture is waning as a younger generation no longer defers to institutions like the church. People are increasingly unwilling to pay taxes towards it or sit in pews to be taught a message they feel has no relevance to them in today's society. If the church is to survive in countries like Germany, Finland and Holland, it must find a balance between retaining its core values and adapting to a changing culture. Meanwhile, groups like Stream West are ready to work with anyone who believes in something. They write the names of those things that prevent Earth from being heaven, cancer, war, hunger, and destroy them symbolically. The new Christianity is already developing rituals of its own.